started, thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you right to it. He is excited. I'm excited for you and for us. But thank you guys so much for coming out. First, I'm going to start off by, of course, I'm thanking everybody for showing up this evening. Let's run through our sponsors just to start really quick. So Ironclad Property Management, Sam Ettinger, thank you so much. We have Burr Loans, Joe, I can't pronounce the last name, Scorsese.
Go for that.
Burr Loans, but Burr Loans is long-term, short-term loans, just bridge loan, anything you need, loans-wise, they are a go-to. Insure Connecticut, Tom is not here, but they insure properties, small and large. So what's that?
He sends us love.
That's messed up.
But Insure Connecticut, we have Junk Bear. Rob is not here, but Rob's team, they pick junk up and dump it off, big and small as well. And Trin Law, with Joette Trin, she is not in the house, she's actually out the country now, but first, again, thank you guys so much for being our sponsors. Thank you to the team, we got Irving.
Yeah, Irving! Woo!
John, we got Kat, and we got myself.
Yay, Kat!
And small plug, I'm a real estate agent specializing in multifamily property, so if anybody wants assistance, I can help you out. And that's it. All right, so we have Sam Ettinger tonight. He is the founder of Ironclad Property Management. I didn't get your bio, but I kind of know a lot about you. Sam started investing in 2012. There we go. Since then, he has acquired a portfolio of
20-something, I don't know,
50-ish units here in Connecticut. Ironclad, they service everything from infield down to parts of New Haven, that kind of center part of the state. I'm kind of doing Yanina's thing now. I've heard it so much that I'm just rolling with it. But I'm going to let Sam introduce himself. But guys, thank you so much, and let's get to it.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Brendan. So Brendan's exactly correct. Started off as an investor and decided to go into property management. My brother actually ran a property management company called Robert C. White & Company. It's kind of my competitor, kind of not. He really focuses on single-family homes and accidental investors. I really focus on people that are strategically investing in property management or in investment properties, and we support their property management needs. So my background is actually in nuclear engineering, so I have a very process-focused. But I think that the point is, I gave a talk a couple months ago about to self-manage or to get a property management company. This one, I really felt my heart tugging on something that I figured could help the community quite a bit. And specifically that is, what makes a good deal and how can I make it better? So I started my journey as an investor. I only got into property management in 2018, though I started investing in 2012. And so from my experience with it, I've been able to run the gambit of buying really bad properties. I've done conversions from a single family to a multifamily. I've done 1031 exchanges. I've done segregation studies. I've done all sorts of things with planning and zoning. And so really, I feel like I actually have possibly more experience in deal finding and doing things to make deals better than I even do about property management because I have more experience in it. And so I really wanted to share this with the community here. I'm glad you guys are all here. I like to make this very, very informal. Ask a question. I'm going to try to pull the audience and have you guys actually provide some information because I want this to be very, very a great learning opportunity for you. And what we all learn is by forcing you to engage your brains, you're going to learn more than just being there sleepy. So I highly recommend you to get off your phones and to really listen and engage in this process, and you're going to get a ton out of it because that's what I want to do and to share. So the title of this is What Makes a Good Deal and How Can I Make It Better? And you guys are going to be part of learning this and experiencing this with us today. So first and foremost, for deals, we really have to get into what are the real estate investing ABCs. So let's poll the audience. Who knows what a cap rate is and is willing to state it, if anyone? Who's brave enough? We're going to go through all of them, so I'm going to start polling the audience. What's a cap rate? Anyone?
So isn't it the rate of return you make on an income-generating asset?
So rate of return on an income-generating asset, does the audience think that's a relatively good explanation of it?
Your return on investment.
Go ahead, Brendan.
One simple definition. The amount of money you would make on a property if you paid for it in cash.
I think that's a better definition, yep. Anyone else want to add to that? So, and we'll define it later, but because I want to say this a couple times so that everyone can understand this and be able to really get it into their brain so that they really fully understand it, is Brandon's definition is quite good, quite close. And so ultimately it is, if I put all of my money into a CD, I'm going to get a 6% return on my investment, right? Because that's what a CD rate is, okay? In the same vein, if I put $100 into a property, I'm expected to get a $6 return. That's a cap rate. So we can think about it as a return on an investment, just like a CD, a stock, anything else, okay? So it's very, very simple, very straightforward. The delineation there from the other things is if I put 100% of the money into it, okay? Going to the second one, what's a cash on cash return? Because obviously that's different than a cap rate, otherwise it wouldn't be on my board. Anyone know what a cash on cash return is? Sure.
It's a return based upon the amount of cash that you put into it versus the value of the asset.
Correct. So it's the amount of cash that you put in the return on it. So what is the delineation then between a capitalization rate and a cash on cash return? So go ahead.
They can be exactly the same if the cash is 100% capitalized.
Correct. But since the cash is not 100% capitalized, you have principal and interest so that you wouldn't have in a capitalization rate that in a cash on cash return you would. So what does that mean? So if I'm putting 10% down, right, I have 90% from the bank's money. So what it is we'll get into it later, but it's your return. So they call it your net operating income. That's going to come next, minus your principal and interest payment, right? Because the capitalization rate will not have a principal and interest because you don't have a bank loan. You put 100% of it in cash, whereas the cash on cash is going to have a bank loan. So your net operating income is going to reduce because of the principal and interest that you're paying on the cash on cash return. So let's go into net operating income now. I kind of gave it away a little bit, but anyone want to tell us what a net operating income is? The amount of money that you make after the expenses. That's exactly correct, okay? Now, with the net operating income, because if we're doing it based on a capitalization rate, the net operating income excludes your principal and interest. Whereas, so it's like in the capitalization rate calculation. So that's correct. So the net operating income, we're going to exclude it because we don't actually have to have debt on the physical asset, right? So it's not really part of the operating income. It's additional income because you don't have enough cash. Does this make sense? Because I want to make sure we're getting this right because I'm going to start using net operating income and cash rate, cash flow, cash on cash, all those type of things. Gross income. What is gross income?
All the income total.
All the income total. So what does all the income total generally correspond to?
Total of rents.
Rents. Can it correspond to anything else?
Laundry.
Laundry. So if you have certain things like laundry, that could be one that you could get additional income from.
Storage.
Storage. If you want to rent out storage. What are other good ones? And this is good stuff, guys. Like throw out some pet fees. A great one, right? We make money on pet fees. Anyone else have anything? Garage, storage. Anyone else? There's all sorts of stuff. Parking, great. I love that actually. You know why? Because you can have a 2-family apartment and you can have 3 parking spaces and you could say something like, I'm going to give you 1 parking space. If you want to rent a second, it's $50 extra per month. Can you do that, guys? Absolutely, right? The creativity of what you do with your brain will allow you to raise or lower your gross income. Okay? Ask me tons of questions. I'm a property manager. I got all sorts of additional revenue sources that we make based on creative methods. But does that make sense? Gross income. Okay. Debt service coverage ratio. Anyone got that one? That's a tough one. Okay, so it has the word, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you're getting a loan,
Yep.
you have to cover how much money you're bringing in relative to debt service that you're paying.
Sure. So, but it's a ratio, right? So it's the net operating income, right? And it's going to be divided by, at some point in time, the debt service, the principal and interest payment. But in this case, the net operating income will also subtract off certain things that are expenses that you can control a little bit more. One of them is income tax, right? So if you have an asset that's performing well, especially if it's an LLC, you're going to end up having to pay income tax on the returns that you have. So you subtract out the income tax because if your net operating income becomes 0, you don't pay any income tax, okay? And the other side of it is the CapEx. And you guys will see this again. And the reason why that is because you can control CapEx to some level, right? I can choose to limp along a heating system another year. I can limp along a roof another year. So I can kind of control when I do my CapEx. And so the debt service coverage ratio is really about your net operating income minus your cap rate, minus your income tax, divided by your principal and interest, your actual debt, which is what you pay on an ongoing basis. What is it after repair value? Does anyone have any idea of what that is? All right, you answer every question. Anyone, how about the right side of the room, guys? Like anything people got over here?
Property's worth when it's all fixed up.
What a property is worth when it's all fixed up, right? So the whole concept of flipping a property is that you're going to buy a property below its intrinsic value. You're going to be able to raise its value by the repairs that you do for it. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to determine before we even start the project, when it's finished, what we should ultimately sell it for. Now, here's the question that I have for you guys. After repair value, is it based on a projection of what we think the market is going to be 6 months in the future? Or do we think it's we do it what it is right now if it was completely fixed up? What do you guys think? Right now. Why right now? Because who can predict the future? Right? Like if you look at right now, I would say, let's raise the hands. Who thinks 6 months or a year from now the market's going to be higher than it currently is?
Federal Reserve.
Well, no, I know Federal Reserve, but who thinks that real estate in Connecticut a year from now is going to be higher than it is? Come on. Yep. One, got a couple. Who thinks it's going to be lower? I got a couple, right? So we're about 50-50. So the after repair value should be based on today. Now, with that said, what does that mean for you guys when you're doing flips? Time is money. Time is important. Because if the market does go down and you do a great, amazing flip, but you take a year for it, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. So it's all about, I need to get it done quickly. Why is it that so many flippers made so much money in the past couple of years, myself included? I didn't even have to do a good flip because the market kept going up. So even if I did a bad flip, if I waited 6 months more, it's more than going to cover my debt service, even though I waited longer than I should because of the fact that the market was in my favor. Okay? That naturally has additional risk on it, and I happened to get lucky because the market was continuing to go up, but we had some flips that maybe would have been unsuccessful if the market started to go down, right? So this is why with the after repair value you do it now, but why when you're flipping, it's really about getting it done as quickly as possible. All right, next one. What is the maximum allowable offer? The MAO. Man, we got some nerds in this room. Anyone else? Go ahead, John.
The offer that you can make after repair costs, and well, I think as a wholesaler, so I was going to say my fee, but after repair costs minus 70% of the value.
Okay, well, you're defining it based on some equations when it's really just says maximum allowable offer. But you're basically getting there. We'll talk about that. Who else go ahead.
It's how much the loan person will allow you to buy the property for.
Also not correct.
Oh.
How much you can pay for the property? Like that's
It's the maximum that you should pay for the property, right? It's if you want to basically, because the thing about flipping is it's really about, it's a numbers game, but it's about being smart with your offers, right? So you can do certain things to change it, but ultimately if you say, I'm going to pay 100% of the maximum allowable offer after the repair value and subtracting off basically the expenses that I'm going to have for it, you're going to lose money, right? So you need to be smart about it. And so you want to come up with a thesis on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that's the maximum you're going to do. And guess what? When you do that and you calculate it, if they say no, you're happy. And if they say yes, you're happy. Because you basically went up to your maximum allowable offer. It's a beautiful thing. You're happy with whatever decision happens. And that is a great thing in real estate when we're happy whether we get a property or we don't get a property. Right? Because we offered what we did. I actually love it. I talk to all my clients and I'm like, oh, we didn't get the offer. I'm so bummed. I said, did you want to offer more money? No. Well, so then why are you bummed? You should have offered more money if you're unhappy that you lost the property, right? And then I also say, well, look, if we're offering a certain amount of money, $100,000 or $200,000, whatever it is, and someone else is willing to pay more for it, then that reinforces that we're not paying above market. So when we do get a deal, We're now encouraged by the fact that we actually bought a property for at or below its true intrinsic value, right? Maybe other people didn't see it, but we bid enough on properties and lost them that we actually are able to determine that we actually did a good job. So, all right, what is a capital expenditure? Anyone?
Big ticket expenses.
Big ticket expenses. What do you say?
Something similar. I've been saying like large purchases, like a new roof or.
Sure. So the traditional definition, if you're a CPA, which I'm not, is it's something that you have to actually capitalize over duration and depreciate. So you could have things that are 15 years, 30 years, all these different years, but technically it's something that you're going to depreciate instead of taking in 1 year, right? That's the technical definition. Now, whether or not you capitalize an appliance, which has an 8-year life, I mean, literally the CPA will say you're supposed to capitalize an appliance. I don't, I take it as a 1 year, right? But ultimately, any capital expenditure is something that you kind of think as something that's going to wear and get bad over an extended duration. So things for me are the standard ones like roofs and heating systems, but also you could think of a capital expenditure as something like a kitchen, a bathroom. Do you think a kitchen will last 100 years? No, I mean, things naturally decay and wear. Should a kitchen last 20 or 30 years? Yeah, you shouldn't be doing kitchens more than every 30 to 40 years unless you really want to update things in a significant way. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, what is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So pity, I always like to think of Mr. T, I pity the fool, right? And then principal and interest. And we separate, why do we separate principal and interest from principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? The reason why is because most people do principal, interest, tax, insurance. That includes the escrow portion. So the principal and interest is your mortgage, and then the escrow is the taxes and insurance. Any questions on this? Because we're going to use this throughout. So I want to make sure we get a good foundation. We good? Okay. All right. So we talked about a lot of the ABCs of real estate investing. So we're running the numbers, what to consider, right? Now what you'll see is we use the numbers to evaluate the current and future cap rates. One of the things is called a pro forma. What do you guys call a pro forma? It's a lie. Pro forma is a lie, okay? A pro forma will never be at or equal to its current performance. It will never. Oh, look, I'm going to raise the rent $200 and I'm going to do all these things to lower my expenses. It's a lie, okay? That doesn't mean that you can't, by better management than the previous person, make a better return than ultimately they did, okay? I'm not saying that you can't make more money. I'm not saying that pro formas are not useful. I'm saying that you'll never see a pro forma that says, I'm going to make the same return profile or a lower return profile. And what we know is within 6 to 8 years, everyone sells the real estate that they bought because they're not making the money that they expected, because they're not managing it well, and because pro formas are a lie, okay? Now, when you do a pro forma, what do you say? You say, okay, what are my incomes? Can I increase it? So when you guys are looking at properties, how often do you say, okay, your rent's only $800, I should be able to get $1,200? Are you considering that in your evaluation of the deal? Yes or no?
No.
No? Who said no? You don't? Really?
Well, not when you buy it, because you got to go on today's, but you can increase it.
Sure, so when you're buying a property, you only do it based on current evaluations, not based on future.
Correct.
How many properties have you bought in the last couple of years?
12.
Okay, well, you're doing better than I expected. I was thinking that you're going to say 0 because everyone in today's market really has to focus on expectations on what the future performance of a property will. I do it all the time. Go ahead.
Does not only come with either value add or appreciation of the asset?
Yeah, so value, you could say value add, but is raising rents a value add? No.
But how can you raise it if maybe the property is not worth $1,200?
Well, so I have some clients of mine that have had properties for 10 years that never raised their rent. Did they add value to it? Can they raise their rent? Because the market can dictate that they can raise the rent, right? So that doesn't mean that you've added value to the property, but through natural appreciation, rents have gone up. I watched the Zillow performance yesterday about all of the different market conditions, and from 2015 to 2020, the market went up about 20%. From 2000 to 2020 to 2023, it went up 30%. So how much of it is value add? I would argue none, right? It's just the fact that the market went crazy and rents went up correspondingly. Does that make sense?
It's also, I would say it's also a trade-off though, right? Because a lot of the people that do have, let's say $800 for 10 years, they push their property cash, right? Most likely, right?
For sure.
They push the cash. But the trade-off is to have a tenant right now that's very reliable, paying on time, doesn't, play the sound system at 12 a.m. So the trade-off is that stability versus that extra,
So
netting more.
let's ask that question, because I might agree with it, I might disagree with it. Do you think the vast majority of owners don't raise the rent because they have good tenants, or do you think they don't raise the rent because they're lazy?
No, I would say they're complacent.
Lazy.
A lot of them, like I said, a lot of people that don't raise the rents, they have significant equity in the property, and they probably paid for it.
So let's presume that you're that person. You have a lot of equity in the property.
No, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying
No,
it's
and
right, but I'm saying
I understand that.
That's the thought process behind that.
And I would argue that it's not the thought process, right? What I would argue is it's actually a function of the fact that they're slumlords and they don't want to fix anything. Because I've had this situation a number of times where I have an $800 rent that I'm raising. Guess the first thing that happens when I end up going from $800 to $1,000 or $1,100? I have a laundry list of all of the things that the tenant did not get done by the owner that they didn't want to ruffle any feathers, because then the owner would raise the rent, right? So it becomes a very symbiotic relationship between owners and residents, where the owner doesn't raise the rent and the resident doesn't complain. That's called, for me, that relationship is why slumlords are in this country. It's not because they say to themselves, I want to be a slumlord. It's because they say to themselves, I don't want to be bothered. Does that make sense? Yes. So, but I would say to you, with what you said initially, you said that they have a good tenant and they don't really want to do anything, right?
No, they have the ability to be slumlords with that tenant, essentially.
Sure, if you want to, right? If you don't want to do it. But there's a difference, because the other side, what you said, to my interpretation was, I'm basically not raising the rent because they're a great tenant. Then what you're doing is being charitable. There's a delineation. If I have a great tenant, I will generally keep them about 10% below market. Why? Not because I'm being charitable, even if I am being charitable to them because I could raise it, but because they're a great tenant, I know that I'm not going to have as much maintenance, vacancy. I had a tenant that was in a property for 5 years. She moved out. Guess what I did? I re-rented the property immediately. I didn't have to paint. I didn't have to clean. I didn't have to do anything. Those tenants are worth their weight in gold, and they deserve to get a benefit relative to the remainder of the population. They deserve to get it for less than market. So if you have a great tenant, you raise their rent, but you keep it below market. You just keep it about 10% below, and then you're going to still do really well, because you're not going to have the extra 10% of expense and painting and other things that when they move out, right? So you can still do it and have a great tenant and a great experience, not raising it all the way to market. Does that make sense, guys? All right, so incomes, can I increase it? Expenses, can I decrease it? What are expenses that in a pro forma we're going to talk about decreasing?
You can split utilities if you...
All right, so we can split utilities. That's an option. What other expenses than a pro forma we did? Maybe I'm going to shop the insurance a little bit harder than someone else, right? So I can reduce my insurance costs. What else can we do, guys? Maybe I'm gonna do something like, they spend a lot of money on maintenance. I'm gonna do all the maintenance myself, right? Things like that. Make sense? Now, I added another category on principal interest. Can I decrease principal and interest? Sure, I can refinance, right? So when the market improves, I can actually do things like that, which can actually reduce my expenses. So it's not really a true expense. It's something that I do have some control over. I actually had a buddy in San Diego that every time the interest rate went down a quarter point, he refinanced. Every single time. He refinanced in 1 year 3 times in San Diego. This is back circa 2006 probably, okay? And the thinking behind it and what he did was, when he refinanced, there were vehicles back in the day where you could pool all of your closing costs into your refinance. So he'd get like a quarter or a half point above, but he wouldn't have to put $1 into the deal. And every single time his payment went down a little bit, right? So there's things like that you can do as you watch the market to be able to do things like refinance your rate and do things like get a great mortgage broker and say, hey, I want to have negative points. I want you to essentially pay me back, and I want to use that in my closing costs, right? Things like that can be done and will be done as interest rates start to come down. So if you got these crazy big rates, things that you can do are things like refinancing every 3 months or something. Get your paperwork together and do it, and you actually can reduce your payment quite a bit. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So let's talk now about it. I don't want to give this away yet. So now let's talk specifically. We did a little bit already. What are the different incomes that we should consider when we're evaluating real estate? Right? We talked about this already, so throw them out again.
Rental,
Rents,
storage,
parking, right?
laundry.
Laundry, pets, things like that, right? So perfect. What are the expenses that presumably we can decrease? Or what are the expenses that we should include in our list of things that we need to consider when we're actually investing in real estate? I'm sorry? Taxes.
Utilities and maintenance.
Utilities, maintenance, those are 2, not 1. Insurance. Water, sewer, perfect, we got a lot. Vacancy, great, that's a great one, thank you. What else we got? Besides vacancy, what's another one? Vacancy, maintenance, or management? Management, yep. So I always pull vacancy and bad debt together because there's ones that, if you look, and a perfect example, who here is a realtor? Okay, Brandon, a couple of others. Have you guys ever seen a calculation of a cap rate calculation or whatever where they're giving you the performance? Have you ever seen vacancy or bad debt in it? You have. So you guys are some of the few, but most real estate agents don't put it in, right? So have you guys seen vacancy, bad debt put in? Do you see management? Do you see CapEx? You probably see maintenance. And they won't even do something like lawn care and snow removal because the guy's out there literally pushing a lawnmower because he doesn't have enough money or isn't making enough in the investment for him to do it. So lawn is another, snow is another. What else do we got, guys? We got a couple more. So another one I have is supplies, sanitation bills, trash is separate from water, sewer. I'll just go over here. So we have electric, right? Sometimes you might have a situation where the electric is not separated, so electric should go in there. And you should just think about it and check it off your list, okay? Electric, we have 1 panel. Okay, I'm gonna be paying electric. Heat and hot water, if heat's not separated, if you have 1 furnace, you're gonna pay heat. If you have hot water, same thing. If you only have 1 hot water heater, you're gonna basically pay for hot water. So I think we talked about the remainder of these, and then principal and interest is an expense that we definitely need to consider as we're basically doing these analyses. Does this make sense, guys? Are these can you think of any others that I missed? I looked at my sheet, I could be wrong, but
Legal?
What?
Legal?
You could say legal if you want, but I would say legal goes into, I would put legal into my bad debt category, right? It's a debt that I'm not necessarily going to be getting back, and so I would say legal is a bad debt type thing. But you could do that, okay? Any other questions about my list? See how I'm doing on time. I always go long, so hopefully you guys like it. If you guys get bored by me, let me know. I can cruise through the rest of this. But I want to lay the foundation. So I love this Mike Tyson quote. So real estate investing never goes expected, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, in the mouth, right? Mike Tyson. I love that, right? Because that's so true, especially in real estate investing, right? We talked about pro formas. It's okay, it's the idealized perspective, right? Like, who here has done a flip? Okay? With you guys doing flips, how many times have you projected a certain amount of money that you're going to spend and you go over that amount? Almost every time, right? Well, what does that mean? So you have to price in, and this is what we're talking about here, you have to price in the unexpected, right? So what about in actually calculating properties? Let me ask you a question. So who here has bought property that they actually made as much money as they expected the first year? Like anyone? I haven't. And I've been doing this for over 10 years, right? You don't make money in real estate the first year you do it. You make money in real estate after about 10 years. It's a dirty little secret. They don't tell anyone that because if you told everyone you're not going to actually make any money, no one's going to buy. So we all are living the same lie. And I would say for the benefit of our owners, because what it does is encourages them to make a good long-term decision that will eventually bring them massive amounts of wealth. So I reinvested everything for a lot of years, and only now